Hello, welcome to the recorded lecture for week 2 for human development, lifespan human development and diversity, PSC5040. As you know, I mentioned last week, oh, by the way, you guys are a fabulous group. Really fun to have been able to interact with you last week. In this class, we're going to have 3 of those synchronous lectures, and they will be at the first meeting, which we've already had, and meeting 5 and meeting 10. And in between, we will have these recorded lectures. My hope is that you will have less screen time imposed upon you on the day of class. So because you can watch this recorded lecture at any time that you want. You know that I am into Donald Hebb and his saying, neurons that fire together wire together if they fire often enough. And so I'm going to open this lecture with a review of some of the things that we talked about last week. Then I will go over some of the things that are new from the reading from both Cosolino and our textbook by Broderick, and review some of those again, and hopefully find some opportunity for you to respond to a joke or two that I've put in here. You can see that my green screen doesn't have anything behind me. That's because I made a mistake of wearing a shirt that has some green on it right over here. And that part, of course, disappears. I did have a green shirt hanging in my office waiting for me, a button down, in case I had a client. Guess what color it was? Yeah, green. So I look like a floating head. So hence you get to see the green screen this week. Hopefully a nice pastoral scene next week, something in the mountains. Okay. And let me share a screen with you to display those concepts. It's taking me a bit of time to find myself familiar with all the places where you have to click to get things done. So forgive me for the pauses, but neuroplasticity, that's a term that's part of interpersonal neurobiology. There's 3 parts to it. It's basically the fact that the brain does change throughout the lifespan. And this is a very hopeful tenet of interpersonal neurobiology. In fact, in Dan Siegel's first book, Mind Sight, there are excerpts interspersed in the text that have to do with counseling a man in his 80s. And by the end of the book, you go through the last session and he has attained earned security, which is secure attachment that is achieved after emerging from childhood. It'll almost make you cry seeing it. But at any rate, it's a demonstration of neuroplasticity. I earned my first doctorate in 2012 at the age of 65, so I consider myself a poster child for neuroplasticity. These 3 items, neurogenesis, synaptogenesis, and neural integration, are the makeup of neuroplasticity: neurogenesis, growth of new neurons; synaptogenesis, formation of new synapses; and neural integration, the formation of new pathways through the brain. You should know these terms. The next term that I'd like you to remember is epigenesis. This refers to the interaction of genetics and environment and experience to determine which genes will actually be expressed. The old controversy of nature nurture is no longer considered. Rather, we know that genetic expression is modified by experience and environment. So epigenesis is the new way of looking at what used to be the nature-nurture controversy. So briefly, epigenesis again is the interaction of genetic endowment with environment, including experience, to determine genetic expression. And you should know this term. Neuroception is the next of these terms that I'd like you to remember. It's a term that was coined by Stephen Porges. He is the author of polyvagal theory. And uh, here's a definition for you of neuroception. Neuroception happens between people when they meet every single time. It is an unconscious process wherein your nervous system determines how safe you are in this ongoing relationship. So there's a definition for you. Persistent, unconscious estimation of safety in the present relationship. Okay, and you should remember that name, Stephen Porges. He is a very big name in the field right now. And polyvagal theory is a very utilitarian set of ideas, especially for the treatment of trauma and developmental trauma. You should also remember the name Dr. Alan Shure. In 2020, in a speech to the American Psychiatric Association, he announced a paradigm shift, basically meaning that the old way of looking at the mind as separated from the body was being supplanted by a newer integrated idea that the mind was actually connected to the body. And as you know, I uh, talk about have talked about a model of people with having a mind, a brain, a body, embedded in social relationships, which all are embedded in a biosphere, which is everything else. And that you can enter this system in lots of different ways. And if you are able to make changes, those changes don't just stay in that area where you made them, they ripple throughout the system. So remember the name Dr. Alan Shure and the fact that we are experiencing a paradigm shift. Um, you know, I was riding past a dental clinic the other day and noticed outside the front there was a line of people waiting to get in. And a whole bunch of motorcycles, a bunch of guys with very colorful jackets, flying their colors from different groups that they belong to. And most of these motorcycles are custom. And they were all at this dental clinic to have their choppers checked out. The next thing that I would like you to consider remembering is the, forgive me please for my lame jokes, okay? Louis Cozzolino, he's the author of our other text. Two important facts, the idea of the social synapse, which you've read about, very utilitarian idea in our field, and the mismatch of reaction. Oh my goodness, I have recation. I'm going to change that here right now. Reaction. The mismatch in speed of reaction to stimuli. The limbic system responds to outside stimuli in 75 milliseconds. It takes our cerebral cortex 500 milliseconds to respond. We had talked about four stage theorists. We talked about Freud, Bronfenbrenner, Piaget, and Erik Erikson, all of whom viewed human development as progressing in stages rather than a continuous sort of unwinding of the development towards maturity or adulthood or whatever you want to call it. Freud had some interesting, he had some remarkable ideas, remarkable insights, three of which were about the origin of the unconscious, which you can read here, and the pathway to the repair of the human psyche. And also he knew that there had to be a point of connection between physiology and psychology. These were way ahead of his time. So all of these theories and concepts are things that I would like you to remember a few things about. Of course, in your summation assignment, your concentric circle, or however you're going to organize that. And by the way, some of the stuff that I've seen that you took phone, cell phone pictures of and attached to the text box in Sakai are pretty exciting. There's some neat things. And the goal here, of course, is for you to see all of these theories and concepts visually integrated in one whole so that you can kind of see how they all fit together. The next two guys that I want you to remember in reviewing what happened in our first meeting are Erik Erikson, who had the stages of man theory, and Bronfenbrenner, who is well known for his influential part in starting the Head Start program. In your summation assignment right now, you should already have Freud and Bronfenbrenner in there. And in the next go, I would like you to put Erik Erikson and Piaget on your assignment. So here you see the two Erikson and Bronfenbrenner in print, just basically a rehash of what I had just stated. And the next fellow that I'm interested in you remembering is Jean Piaget, who referred to himself as a genetic epistemologist, which I think is kind of an interesting title. As I had mentioned to you, Piaget's theories are utilitarian today, especially when it comes to preschool and early childhood education in deciding what kind of tasks are appropriate for their cognitive development. Piaget's stages are referred to now in psychological reports. They'll label a child's period of development as being in such and such a stage of Piaget's development. As I mentioned to you, he observed a very small group of children, his own kids, yet his ideas have proven to be worthy of interest, and they have clinical utility today. So Bronfenbrenner and Erikson, and the last one here, I'm going to put up a little bit about Piaget. There are some really neat little vignettes of teachers interacting with students regarding the kind of things that determine the passage from one stage to another. These stages are considered something that cannot be skipped. They have to be handled in order. Might be fun for you to Google Piaget's cognitive developmental theory stages and take a look at some of these vignettes that are there. They're fun to watch with young babies and children up to 11, 12 years old with the development of formal operations, or what is referred to as abstract thought. It's important to note that not everybody develops abstract thought. Okay, there are some people who top out at the formal operations stage. So this is Jean Piaget, a few notes about him. So far, these things that have been presented on the slides are all ideas and concepts that I really think you should have in your knowledge bank. Some of the specifics about each of the theories, for instance, Freud's psychosexual theories of development are, in my opinion, psych trivia. But there are some aspects of Freud, some things about him that you should know, especially those three things that were listed on the slide. Bronfenbrenner's theory is not all that utilitarian today. It probably should also be relegated to the archives of psychological history. However, Bronfenbrenner is remembered for his influence in the start of the Head Start program. Erik Erikson's stages are very interesting, and they make for good reading and interesting points of introspection as well. They make for interesting conversations with clients about what stage they might be in. So Erik Erikson's ideas do have some utility today. Jean Piaget's ideas have a lot of utility today with early childhood education. Moving on to some stuff that's in Broderick chapter 2 and 3. That's the reading for this week. We start off with some stuff on epigenesis. And there's a very interesting study about cross fostering of rat pups, kind of a cute little name for a rat pup. Um, Little creatures with beady eyes, calling them pups. At any rate, there is also a YouTube video about that, or excuse me, it's a TED Talk. I'm going to give you a link to it, and I would like you to go to that link afterwards to find out more about epigenesis. Interesting that there is a YouTube TED Talk or a TED Talk on YouTube about the very study that's mentioned in our textbook. That's kind of a neat coincidence.